My name is Tyra Barreto, and this is my oral presentation, which is on climate change relating to the food production. To begin, the issue focusing around the world's climate is growing rapidly. Even though many believe the topic is controversial, scientists are now beginning to observe it rather than suggest that it's actually happening. To prove this with the use of Earth-orbiting satellites, scientists have been able to observe its climate change on a large scale. Things such as tree rings and coral reefs show that the climate is changing rapidly. With this, it states that it is changing at about 10 times faster than it has in the past. With rapidly growing world population comes a higher demand for food. Food production is necessary to provide the people of the world with enough food to survive, so therefore methods such as factory farming have to be used versus traditional farming. Factory farming is a system of rearing livestock using intensive methods by which poultry, pigs, or cattle are confined indoors under strictly controlled conditions. This method of farming uses less land, but increases the amount of greenhouse gases and emissions that are released into the air. Not only does it cause a lot of greenhouse gases, but the animals themselves being confined in one area also cause a lot of waste, which then must be transported somewhere else. This is different to traditional farming, as the animals are raised and fed on a pasture where the waste is used as a natural fertilizer, and they don't have to eat feed that is grown separately. They can simply just eat the grass from the land. There's a big argument that lies within the cost of everything. Meat that is considered grass-fed or pasture-raised or organic tends to cost a lot more, and people state that they can't afford that. So that is why factory farming is another good option for people. The reason that it does cost more is because animals that are pasture-raised take longer to reach finished condition, like big enough and fatty enough to butcher and sell. This is because they eat the grass. They don't eat this feed that people grow and manipulate so that animals will grow quicker. That's why factory farming costs less in a way, because it takes less time to grow the animals. One method to combat this would be going vegan or vegetarian, which is either not eating any animal products whatsoever or simply not eating meat. Even simply not eating red meat would require 28 times less land and 11 times less water than any other animal to raise. Along with this, there's a large portion of land that is used to simply just grow the feed for animals instead of using it to grow human food. We have to grow feed separately instead of them just eating the grass or what they would naturally eat in the wild. We have to grow it and then feed it to them in these confined areas. To go along with this, the food production industry creates a lot of deforestation. At the current rate of deforestation, the world's rainforest could diminish and virtually vanish within the next 100 years at our current rate of depletion, which is awful. Another factor that adds a lot of greenhouse gases and emissions in the atmosphere is travel emissions. They're very bad for the environment, and food that is flown from one country to another country or shipped overseas or even driven state through state causes a lot of emissions. It's pretty unnecessary how short of distances food is flown just to get it there quicker. It is understood that the food industry is growing very rapidly, so more travel is needed. One way people could combat this would be through eating locally versus wanting foods from other areas. This is all according to an article called "The Tricky Truth About Food Miles." This same article argues that limiting the amount of flying food can be a way to help reduce food transport emissions, which is true. Not only do the emissions hurt the atmosphere, but it hurts the plants and animals themselves. Air pollution creates ozone emissions, which in turn penetrates into the plant structure and impairs its ability to develop. So these crops that are affected by that we can't eat as quickly, and therefore those take even longer to grow, so those are going to end up cost more. So it all comes down to greenhouse gases and emissions being released on our part as humans. The struggle for plants to develop, like I said, can greatly affect the price of the product. One final topic that I'm going to talk about is the plants and the use of pesticides and fertilizers to grow them. Pesticides and fertilizers are just another thing that are polluting the air and water. The chemicals that are being put into the earth can very easily end up in our drinking water and other plants that we don't even use pesticides and fertilizers on. With things such as organic farming, this wouldn't happen. So the healthy organic soil is used from the start to properly produce vegetation without any harmful chemicals, and that's how it is in the end. An article called Environmental Benefits of Organic Farming states that a major study comparing adjoining organic and chemically treated wheat fields showed that the organic field featured 8 more inches of topsoil than the chemically treated field and also had only 1/3 of the erosion loss. Organic farming is also proven to produce far less carbon dioxide than factory farming is because of this, the machinery used versus just growing the plants. Instead of attempting to keep other animals and insects that would naturally come in, like through factory farming, how they keep everything in an enclosed area, organic farming allows it. It's natural. It's what keeps a farm stable, the biodiversity of allowing other animals and insects in. Allows the soil to continue to grow naturally and not have to move huge amounts of plants and farming material over to another farm just because the soil is now bad. And we do have to do that because of factory farming and things like that, because the soil goes bad. All in all, after researching about the world's food production, in order to protect our world, we must begin to realize the negative side effects of the food we produce and eat. There's many ways we can do this, such as going vegan or vegetarian, or simply cutting out red meat, eating locally, stop using pesticides and fertilizers even just as much on our plants, and maybe allowing more traditional farming methods to come into play versus so much factory farming. This would greatly improve our climate.